Ever wish you could download laser focus? Straight to your brain.
Aha, wouldn't that be something?
Seriously. Today, we're diving into how to train our brains for better focus. Get into that neurobiology stuff.
It's really cool, actually. We've got more control over our attention than we think.
Totally. I'm all about those brain hacks. And that's what this deep dive is all about, unlocking that focus superpower. We're looking at Andrew Huberman's research. He's got some great stuff on how to improve focus quickly.
Oh yeah, Huberman's the best. He breaks down those complex ideas so well, makes it easy to understand.
Right, he talks about how focus starts with our vision. Which, makes sense, but I never thought about it, on a brain level.
It's a fascinating link. What happens is when your eyes lock onto something, your brain, it releases these neurochemicals, acetylcholine and epinephrine, and those are basically like fuel for focus. They help your brain lock in and tune out distractions.
Wow, so we're talking about actually retraining our brains. That's huge.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? Huberman talks about staring intently, which, honestly, sounds a little out there at first.
It does, right? But think about it like this, like a bird pecking at a tiny seed. They use those rapid, inward eye movements to get that laser focus, and we can actually copy that. By consciously focusing on a small area, even just for short bursts, it's like a mini workout for your visual focus.
So instead of my eyes darting around my screen when I'm trying to work, I should try focusing on just one word or a sentence for a few seconds at a time.
Exactly. It seems so simple, but those little things, those deliberate actions can really strengthen those neural pathways over time, the ones that help us focus.
Okay, I'm definitely trying that. Now, what about those natural rhythms our brains have? The research mentions this 90-minute cycle. Can we use that to, help us focus too?
Absolutely. It's better to work with our natural rhythms than against them.
So instead of pushing ourselves for hours and hours, it's smarter to take breaks.
Exactly. Try tackling your toughest task during that middle hour, when your focus is naturally sharpest. Then, at the beginning and end of those 90-minute cycles, allow for some less intense focus. Answer emails, take a walk, just something that doesn't need laser focus.
That makes a lot of sense. We're working with our brains, not against them. This is already eye-opening, and we're just getting started. But before we dive into the next part, I want to pause for a second and let you, our listener, really absorb this. Think about your own work style. Do you tend to push yourself for hours on end, or do you naturally take breaks? Okay, so we've been talking about visual focus, those brain chemicals, and working with our natural rhythms. But gotta be real, there's this huge focus monster we all deal with. Technology. It's like our phones are designed to steal our attention,
Tell me about it. It's a constant battle. Notifications, social media, it's all engineered to distract us.
Seriously. I get sucked in way more than I'd like to admit. And Huberman's research, it actually explains why it's so hard to resist.
It's all about how our brains are wired, you see. Bright colors, moving images, they trigger dopamine, that feel-good chemical, and our brains love that stuff. But the problem is, the more we chase that quick dopamine hit, the harder it gets to focus on things that require more effort. The stuff that might not be as instantly gratifying, but ultimately more rewarding.
So it's not just the time we waste scrolling, but it's making it harder to focus in other areas of our lives too.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Every time you switch your attention, from writing an email to checking your phone, there's a little bit of attention residue left behind. Your brain, it doesn't just instantly switch gears, it's still trying to process that last thing. And over time, all that switching back and forth, it really takes a toll. We end up feeling scattered, mentally drained.
Wow. Attention residue, that's a really good way to put it. Makes total sense though. Our brains need a second to catch up, to shift gears, and we're just bombarding them constantly. No wonder we're always fried by the end of the day.
Exactly. It's like imagine trying to run a marathon having only trained on a treadmill. You might keep going for a bit, but you're going to hit a wall eventually.
So what do? We can't just ditch our phones and live off the grid, right?
Right. It's all about finding that balance, setting healthy boundaries, and a good place to start, becoming more aware. How much are these distractions really affecting you?
So maybe step one is just noticing how often we grab our phones without even thinking. Are we choosing to engage or just reacting to that notification? I wonder what you're thinking about right now, dear listener. Are you someone who's glued to their phone, or do you pride yourself on being a master of focus? Either way, we're about to dive into some practical tips to regain control of your attention. It's really making me rethink things. My phone and me, we need a little chat. It's not about hating on tech. It's more about being smarter with it.
Exactly. It's like realizing our attention is valuable. Right. Like anything valuable, we get to choose how we spend it.
So we're not trying to be like focus robots. It's more about having the choice of where our attention goes.
Exactly. And when we can choose, when we can be present, that's where the good stuff happens. Joy, creativity, connection, all of it.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to you, our listener. Think about what we've talked about today. Visual focus, hacking those brain chemicals, those natural rhythms, and fighting back against those tech distractions. If you had to pick just one thing to walk away and apply today, what would it be?
That is a great question. And remember, even small changes can make a difference, especially over time. Don't underestimate those little tweaks.
So true. This has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about improving focus, but about how my brain works. It's fascinating.
Me too. It's incredible how much power we have over our attention when we understand the science behind it.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to leave you with one last thought. We've talked about what we can do as individuals to boost our focus. But what if, and just think about this, what if we could design our environments, our workplaces, our homes, even our digital spaces to work with our brains instead of against them? What would that look like? Something to think about. This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. And remember, keep those mental muscles working.
Welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling millennials versus Gen Z today.
Yeah. Millennials versus Gen Z, it's a hot topic.
It really is. And honestly, we got a ton of articles on this.
Yeah.
Some could call it like a generational war. Others a love story.
Yeah,
So,
right.
which is it? Are millennials and Gen Z going to be okay?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. When you dig into it, it's less about like a war and more about just different upbringings, right?
Right.
Like millennials, we remember dial-up.
Oh, yeah.
Gen Z treats Wi-Fi like it's oxygen, like it's just gotta have it.
They're totally different worlds.
Yeah. So how does that manifest in like the real world?
Well, that's what I really want to get into because it's such a tangible difference, right? Like I actually remember a time before smartphones, before social media, and I try to explain that to people who are younger and they can't even.
It's unfathomable.
It's unfathomable.
Yeah. And it's not just like a technological thing. It affects how you think about communication. Like millennials, we might have passed notes in class.
Yeah.
Agonized over like writing the perfect email.
Totally.
Gen Z just slides into the DMs without a second thought.
Yes, 100%. And it's not even just communication. It's the way that you approach work, the way that you think about problems. Even like our senses of humor are different because of this.
Totally.
Like we had to explain what a hashtag was to people.
Exactly.
It's wild.
And it goes even deeper than that, right? Because it's not just those little things. It's like their whole worldview on things like social issues, work ethic. A lot of the articles you share really went into that.
Absolutely. And that's what I found so fascinating is how can something that seems so simple, like when you grew up with a smartphone or not, can create such a big difference.
Huge impact, yeah.
But I do think it's important to say, even though there are these differences, they're not completely different species.
No, they're not from different planets or anything like that.
Right.
There's a lot of common ground.
Yeah, like what we...
Well, for one, they both grew up with crazy fast technology changing all the time.
That's true.
Economic uncertainty has been a factor for both of them. And I think you could also say that both generations are digitally fluent.
Yeah.
Even if that looks different for each generation.
Totally.
And they're both facing these huge problems, right?
Yeah.
Like climate change, social justice issues, all of that.
So it's not about saying one generation is better. It's more about understanding like where they're coming from.
Totally. And how we can all like get on the same page.
Yeah, because this isn't just some abstract thing. It's like we have to work together.
This is the real world. This is how we actually function as a society.
Exactly. Like how do we learn from each other and
Right.
build something that works for everybody?
And that's what makes this so interesting to me, at least. Because it's not just about millennials and Gen Z, right?
Right.
It's like, how does any generation deal with the one that came before and the one that comes after?
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Like what are Gen Z going to be reminiscing about
Yeah.
in 20 years? What's going to be their dial-up?
Exactly. Like, will it be... I remember back before VR was everywhere or before self-driving cars.
Or before AI could write all of our scripts for us.
Right. And how is that going to, like, color how they see the world?
Yeah.
And how they deal with next generation? It's like this endless cycle.
Totally.
And if we can spot the patterns, that's how we figure out how to actually make things work.
And it makes you realize that these generational divides that we always hear about are not like this huge gap. It's more like we're all just stepping stones on this.
Building on each other.
Exactly. Building on what came before to make something new.
And the tech is only speeding up, right?
Yeah.
So this is only going to get more and more important, like figuring out how to talk to each other,
Totally.
how to work together, how to make progress. It all depends on understanding this stuff. So true. Well, on that note, maybe next time you see a meme you don't quite get, or you're struggling to communicate with someone at work, or even just in your personal life.
Yeah.
Think about this. Think about those generational differences.
Where are they coming from?
Exactly. Because when we understand where everyone's coming from, it's a lot easier to build bridges instead of walls.
I like that.
And that's what it's all about, right?
That's what it's all about.